Hi there booktube! Today is going to be my summer TBRs wrap-up video. So I'm going to talk and share all the books I read during the summer of 2017. Before I get into this actual stack here, let me just say informational things before that. On my original TBR, I had 46 books. I did read 30 books. So I think that's not bad. Bad thing, not the great thing about that, only 16 are actually for my TBR. So that didn't work out so perfectly well. I still think that 30 books to read in 3 months is a good number and I'm really happy about them. I wish I finished more from the actual TBRs. Let's just get into the books I actually finished and the ones I started from the TBR videos I shared, as well as the other books I managed to read during summer. First two, I read The Way of Kings Part 1 and 2 by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Stormlight Archive series by him, which is a huge, epic, big fantasy series that he is currently writing. This first book, which is over 600 pages, was a lot of world building, a lot of character building, a lot of character explanation and all of that, but at the same time, we still don't know a lot about the world. We still don't really know why the characters act and do as they do and act. So it was a big book about that, but at the same time, we were told a lot without being told a lot. So it could have been half the amount of pages and tell us exactly the same thing. So that was a slightly bit frustrating for me in some sections. So I do recommend it. I think that especially this series is one by him that you have to reread a few times to really actually understand and get everything he's trying to tell. So I will be rereading this entire series at one point. So I love that I own this first book because I will be rereading this maybe even next year so that I still have some clear memories of what is happening. It is a good book and I do recommend it. Between those two books, I needed a bit of a more lighter, funner, easy, just entertaining kinds of reads, and so I read Sweet Summer Kiss by Deborah Salonen. Cute little contemporary romance adult book. There is no sex in it, which I personally really like. It's entertaining, it's fun, it's cute. It's a very fast, easy read, and that is exactly what I needed between those big fantasy books. So I picked that up and really enjoyed myself with it. But it wasn't on my summer TBR. And the other book that I read that was also not on my summer TBR was a library book, and that was Paper Princess by Erin Watt. And that book was not the best one for me. I picked that up simply because I kept seeing it in my Goodreads page where people reviewed and talked about the book, and this book just kept popping up at the beginning of summer and just got the highest ratings I ever saw in this type of contemporary romance adult book thing. So I picked it up and I was really disappointed by it. I don't think it's a good book. I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's a very stupid story. It really takes down women. It really just objectifies them. Did not enjoy that book, and I did not think that it is one of those books that should be recommended. So, and after that, I picked up Girl Boss by Sophia Amoruso because I just needed a bit of a positive girl thing, and the title certainly hinted that it would be a positive girl thing, and it actually was. It is a non-fiction book, talks about her life. She talks about being a high school dropout, how she started her business, how hard it was, how much work it was, how she would recommend doing it, what she would tell people that ask her constantly about how she did it. And it's just her tips and tricks, but at the same time they're not tips and tricks. It's more of that's how I did it, and if you want to do it the same way, here is how I did it. It was a great read, really informative book. I do recommend it if you're interested in this book. The next one was another fantastic pick, and that is And I Darken by Kirsten White. This book is wonderful. I really loved it. It is brutal. It is horrendously violent, especially for a YA book. It's a historical fiction book that gender swaps Vladimir the Impaler into a girl. It's her growing up into a young woman that tries to discover who she is and where her place in the world is during a very woman-unfriendly time. And I love how utterly unapologetic this book is. It really portrays the horrors that this time had to offer. We get mistreated slaves, we get scenes where where people are being tortured, where people are being killed. I loved the writing, I loved the characters, I loved how strong our female lead is, how badass she is, how brutal she is, and how she gets things done. It's a wonderful book, and I highly, highly recommend it, and I cannot wait until I read the next one in this series or trilogy or whatever it is. But this one was beautiful, and I highly, highly recommend it. Then I read a NetGalley arc I got and just wanted to get through, and that is Mrs. Saint and the Defectives by Julie Lawson Timmer. It just was a disappointing read. It was not at all what I wanted, so that was not great. And the other two I picked up after that to get through a few NetGalley books were, I guess, The Boss by Karen Frank and Mr. President by Kathy Evans. They were adult contemporary romance books, and I wanted something light and fluffy and easy to read, and they were just not okay. They were not good. But after that, I read Eliza and Her Monsters. That book is actually one I think that deserves all the rave and all the hype it gets, because it's really nicely done. This book just appreciates that you can have friends over the internet, and they're real friends, they're real people. So if you're talking to them, you're having a conversation, you're spending time with friends. So it's wonderful to see that in a book. And I also love that that book included the age differences are real and exist during internet friendships, because I personally have friends that are over 15 years older than I am, just as I have people that I talk a lot to that are 10 years younger than me, but they're still friends of mine. I still talk with them, I still enjoy having conversations with them and being friends with them, but I would never have met them in real life and never have experienced the moments I have with them. So the internet is wonderful in that aspect, and I loved that that book really showcased that. I didn't really love some other aspects, but overall that book was great. And if you're interested in Eliza and Her Monsters, I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful, easy to read, and it's really a beautiful book about internet positivity. So read that. And the next two books I read were library books I had, and both of them were, once again, really bad books for me. So really, I should have stuck to my summer TBR. Any book I added other than Eliza and Her Monster and Sweet Summer's Kiss, I just didn't like. Medici 1 and Medici 2, which are books translated from the Italian. I read the German translations. Those books could have been wonderful. They're all about the history of the Medici family, and I really love them. I read a lot of books about them before. I would not recommend those books, which are being translated into English now. So if you see them, stay away from those books. They were not great. After that, I finished My Map of You by Isabel Broom, which was a summer read I showed in my library book haul. And that was a book about a Greek island where an English woman goes to because she gets a house from her aunt she never met, and she goes there to decide if she wants to keep the house or if she wants to sell the house. But it was a good read. It was entertaining. It was perfect for summer. It was nothing special. It was not something that I reread, so it was great to have it from the library. And after that, I picked up another NetGalley book, and that is The Ready-Made Thief by Augustus Rose. And that was another disappointing read. That was one book I was really excited about. I was anticipating, so excited when I got that arc. This book was about a girl that is a thief, but it is more about this huge conspiracy theorist and secret society group that has this big thing that somehow involves this girl that is a thief, and it wasn't at all what I wanted. Yeah, I was disappointed by that read as well. So NetGalley book clearly don't work for me right now. Because I was disappointed by that read, I decided I should just finally get back to my summer TBR, and so I picked up Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This was just an entertaining and fun read, and exactly what I needed after reading all those disappointing reads. It was great to reread this. It was great to re-experience the world and the characters, even if I hate them, and it was a good choice to pick up. After that, I wanted another reread, so I decided to buy and reread Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon McGuire. And having read Down Among the Sticks and Bones, which gives us the get to know Jack and Jill, which are in this book as well, their world and their explanation of why they're behaving as they do in this book, it was great to get back into this, and I loved this book. this time around because we had this background now, and that was just wonderful to see. If you have not read either of those books, I highly recommend reading Down Among the Sticks and Bones and then Every Heart a Doorway. Just do it that way. It's way better and way more enjoyable. After I finished that, I finished Words of Radiance Part 1 by Brandon Sanderson. And this big chunker was actually not on my summer TBR because I did not expect to read the second book in the Stormlight archives as well. In this book, we mainly follow a different character, which I'm really enjoying and really started to like a lot more than I did in the first book, so that's good. He does manage to build a good world, and I am interested to reading the fourth book, or the second part, The Words of Radiance by him. The Score by Al Kennedy, it was the next book because I wanted something light and fluffy after reading the first part of Words of Radiance, and that was horrible, and I don't recommend it, and just don't read it. The next book was another one from my summer TBR, that is The Bridge From Me to You by Lisa Schroeder. This book was good, but it could have been great if the one part or the one character wouldn't have told her story this way. And I don't understand why the author did that. I would have understand why the author did that if there would have been a reason. For example, if the character would have been autistic or unable to express herself. There wasn't a reason. It was just told that way. It was a good summer contemporary, but it would have been way better if both sides of the story would have been actually novelized. I still enjoyed it. If you're interested in it, do recommend it. It is a good book. The next one, Meant to Be by Lauren Morrill. This book I picked up because I kept seeing it compared to Gilmore Girls. I wanted to read it because of that, and it was a big disappointment. The main character is really enjoyable and likable to me personally at the beginning because she's a very planned out person. She goes to London on a school trip during the summer, and she plans to go to museums. She wants to learn the history and see all those places that you always dream of seeing when you're in London. She has books and travel guides and all of that she travels there with, and really just wants to get the best experience she can from this overseas trip. But then she completely changes, and I did not enjoy that. I didn't think that was realistic. I didn't think that was needed or necessary. So for me, this book was not good. I would not recommend it, and it has nothing in any way comparable to Gilmore Girls. Next book I read was one I loved, and that was a reread, and that is The Next Together by Lauren James. This book is a book that tells a story throughout different timelines. We jump back and forth between history and the future, between two characters that always end up meeting and have to fulfill a specific destiny. So they keep getting reborn, and until they complete that destiny, that quest that they have to do without knowing that they have to do it. It's a wonderful told story, and this reread really appreciated the time jumps this book has, because we keep switching back and forth between the different times and the different storylines. And even though the two main characters are always the same, they are always slightly different in the different times, because, you know, a person in the 1600s is different than a person in 2039. So they are the same characters, and you see the characteristics that always stay the same throughout the different timelines they're in. But there is also a big difference to see, and it's one of those beautiful, wonderful books that really gets better each time you reread it. It's a bit told in mixed media. You have those emails kinds of things, you have letters that are being written, you have websites and infos that are spread throughout it, and one timeline is completely told through emails and letters and all of that. It's a wonderful book, and I highly recommend it, and it was just a beautiful reread. Then I picked up Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day by Winifred Watson, and this was so fun to read. This was one of the most entertaining and fun and easy reads that I did the entire year so far. I've went into completely not knowing what to expect. It's so nice to read this book, but it's so stupid. It's one of those books that is so entertaining in its complete hilarity of unrealisticness that it's just a fun read, but you enjoy it because it's so silly. Because I loved that book so much, I decided to go back to reading a NetGalley book, which was not the best idea, but I was approved to read Slayers and Vampires, the complete uncensored and unauthorized oral history of Buffy and Angel. This was a book compiled all the interviews that people that had to do with Buffy or Angel, the actors, the producers, everyone around creating the set and all of that, just talked about the show, and that show influenced their lives, and it just sounded really good to me. This book was horrible. Each chapter you had people talk about the show, and that was great. But you had Joss Whedon talking about how much he loved Buffy and what he wanted to create with her in the show. And you have him saying one quote. A page later, you have him saying practically the same thing again, but slightly different in another show. And then you have him a couple of quotes later saying the exact same thing again, but this time from a magazine. It was horrible to read. It was not good. It was not at all good. And if you love Buffy or Angel, don't read that book. That was bad. Just don't. I needed something that I know I would love, so I picked up The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson. This is one of those horrific, horrendous thrillers that while you read, you love it because it's so wonderfully written and the story is so gruesome that you kind of love how horrendously awful it is. Let me just say that if you love the horror thriller kinds that just keep you at the edge of your seat, that makes you shake your head and really wish and hope and pray that nobody in the real world will ever be that psychotic, and at the same time you read it and you know that somebody out there is exactly like how it's described in this book, and you just hope you never ever meet that person, you will love this book. But if you're somebody that cannot read about rape, even if it is not graphically described at all, don't pick up this book. But if you love a really thrilling thriller that has a completely psychopath in it, read it. You will enjoy it. Because I wanted something a bit more light and fluffy, I decided to finish up a series that I really enjoyed the first 3 books of at the beginning of the year. So I picked up Rock Wedding by Nalini Singh, and I really like her writing normally. This one was not good because she tried to put so much into this book. It just was not anywhere near as good as the other 3 books were. Regretted reading that, but I read it nonetheless. After that, I wanted something cute and easy and fun and just charming. So I decided to pick up To All the Boys I Loved Before and P.S. I Love You by Jenny Han, and I really liked this. Enjoyed this way more, especially the first book, than I did the first time around. I read the books from my library in 2015 for the first time. Didn't really appreciate the wonderful things that Jenny Han did in those books because I was still pretty new into that genre. So I didn't know what she did differently than other authors of that contemporary YA romance genre did. But this time around I knew, and I loved some aspects of this series so much. I really appreciate that she wrote about Laura Jean the way she did. She made her this homebody, that person that loves spending time with her family, that likes it better to spend Friday night in the kitchen baking cookies and spending time with her sister and her dad instead of going out to a party and getting drunk. I love that sex is a pretty big deal in this book, that 16-year-old girl is not just expected to have sex, that it is one of those things that you don't have to have it. If you're not ready, don't have it. That's fine too. And I think it's a cute and fun and easy series to read. Overall, I really loved them, I really enjoyed them, and I'm so happy I reread them. And the last 3 books I completed during this summer: Until Friday Night, Under the Lights, and After the Game, all by Abby Glines. And this is the Fierce Party trilogy or series. I don't know if there will be more books out or if it's a completed trilogy. The first 2 were rereads. The last one just came out at the end of August, so I really do enjoy this trilogy or series. I think they're nice books in the way that showcase that high school students should focus on school, that learning is important, that their future is important, and that school is something you should focus on, and that you're a football player, that your team counts on you, that you should focus on that you should be somebody that your team can count on. And those 3 books all feature that kind of thinking, and I love that. I also like that it is not, all 3 books don't have the kind of drama that I personally think is just silly and stupid. They have real problems. For example, in the first book, one dad dies of cancer, and in the second book, the one character learns that his family always lied to him about important things. And in the third book, about a girl that was raped when she was 15 and the consequences of that. There are heavier topics that are dealt with, but at the same time, all three books have similar issues in the way, and I'm using the last book as an example. The rape was compared to a cheating husband. So I hated that Abby Glines put that on a similar emotionally scarring level, because it's not. Both things are horrible. Cheating is horrible and being raped is horrible, but they are completely different kinds of horrible. Cheating is a choice. Being raped is not. So comparing something that you choose to do and something you have no control over at all is not okay for me. And all three books had something that was a similar level of that is not comparable. Why are you comparing it? I like the books. I enjoy reading them. I enjoyed rereading them. I love some aspects of them, but I hate others. So I don't know at all if I should tell you guys to go out and read them. Just decide for yourself what you want to do about those. I do recommend them, but just go in with the warning. And those were all 30 books I started and finished reading during the time that I set for myself to complete my summer TBR. And now let's move on to the 14 books I started and did not finish. The first 3 are fantasy books I put on the list: The Eye of the World, The Final Empire, and Trader's Blade. In those books to page 50. In The Final Empire I got to 168. And then I have crime books. Of the first one is The Night Manager by John Le Carre. I'm really enjoying this book, but I just didn't read it early enough to be able to finish it. I'm currently on page 95. Really enjoying this book. I highly recommend it so far. It's really good, but I just wasn't able to finish it. And the other one is The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. I'm really enjoying it. I read the first 24 pages of it so far. It's a really interesting start. I just started it and never continued on. The Wonder by Emma Donoghue, and I got to page 40 exactly on this book. I'm really enjoying it. I put it down. I never picked it back up. No reason whatsoever. The Ladder of Years by Ann Taylor, which I got to page 30. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's a wonderful family story so far. No idea why I never picked it back up again. The other one that is exactly the same reason is We Are Not Ourselves by Matthew Thomas. I really like it so far. I'm on page 50. I put it down. I never picked it back up. Don't ask me why. The next one that was just a bit too much and I needed a little break, and that is A Suitable Boy by Vikram Thess. I got just about halfway through the books in here, and that is what I read so far, and that is what I still have to get through. And it's really interesting so far, but I just needed a break, so I didn't continue on. I will be finishing this in the near future, but I just needed a break. The book that I needed to take a little break on before continuing on is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I am exactly in the middle of that book. I'm really enjoying it, but for some reason that I cannot explain, this book really is hitting me emotionally, and I need to take breathers between continuing reading on. I don't know why this book is hitting me so hard. I don't understand it. I am really enjoying Donna Tartt's writing. I really like how she tells the story. I really like her plot. I like all of that. It is a book that is hitting me way harder than I ever expected it to. So I need to take it a bit slower than I expected it to. The last adult book I started and didn't finish, and I'm so close. I read that, so I'm only needing those few pages. I just didn't get to them before I wrapped this summer TBR thing up. That is Do No Harm by Henry Marsh. Really enjoying this. I think it's a beautiful book so far. I cannot wait to finish it. And the last 3 I started are YA books. One I'm also currently reading and almost done with is Always and Forever, Laura Jean by Jenny Han. I'm really enjoying this. It's just as good as the first 2 were. It's really entertaining and fun and cutesy, and it's a good read so far, so I'm enjoying reading that. And continuing on with that, one I picked up and put down for no reason whatsoever is The Last Beginning by Lauren James. This is the second book in the duology, The Next Together. I'm loving this. I don't know why I'm not continuing on. I will finish it in October. And the last one I'm actively currently reading is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the audio audiobook I'm listening to while I'm knitting a Christmas present. Almost halfway through it so far. I'm really enjoying this very slow reread of this. Those all the books I read or started to read from my summer TBR, and the books I added for no good reason and I shouldn't have during my summer reading. I would love to know if you guys read any of the books I talked about today, if you loved them, if you didn't like them. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and maybe subscribe to my channel. I hope to see you guys in my next video, and until then, in the comments, I wish you all a wonderful day. Bye.